In this video, I'm going to be going over Axis Mundi, Noah's Ark, the Wheel of Giants, ancient burial mounds. I'm going to start bringing the topography and the cosmic geography into this, alright? Satan's version and God's version, okay? I'm going to be doing a lot of maps from above. Dolmens, the Vatican, Stonehenge. I'm going to go over the deeper meaning behind some of these angels, the star constellation Draco, and Noah's window, and temples again. Temples. I'm definitely going to be going over the Garden of Eden, God's camp, CERN, and I'm going to be talking about the Tower of Babel, and I'm going to bring up circular ambulation and pre-ambulation. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Alright, first of all, the image of the cross has been depicted in the Bible since the beginning of the Bible. Okay, it's not just something that's in the New Testament. The image of the cross is constantly portrayed in the Old Testament. Alright, I need to say that because lots of Christians think that the cross is a pagan symbol. It has been made evil, that is for sure. Okay, that's all Antichrist stuff, okay? All of what I'm going to be talking about is Antichrist stuff. It's the twisted version of God's story, alright? And kingdom, and his people, alright? If you type in Axis Mundi, you're going to get a bunch of metaphysical weird stuff, okay? That's because whenever God does something to try to bring you to Christ, Satan takes it, or Satan takes it and twists it around, and it just becomes 20 shades of witchcraft, okay? However, I'm going to show to you what's happening right now. Alright, I'm going to show you what's going on with Axis Mundi, and it's going to get pretty involved. Alright, so anyway, in the Garden of Eden, if you read it, these 4 rivers intersect. These 4 rivers make a cross, okay? You can either put these rivers on top of the mountain to make a big mountain. These rivers can turn into waterfalls, basically, okay? Or you can put the rivers under the mountain, okay? Just like in this picture. Okay, so this is the start of Axis Mundi for every single person on Earth, okay? Because this really happened, okay? So when Adam and Eve had many more children, and then through Noah, yes, the oral traditions of this scene went everywhere, and it turned into a big twisted mess, okay? Because people add in their own ideas, and they made up their own gods to fit inside this original theory, okay? And you see that rock right here, this little rock in the middle, that represents the little rock and window that Noah made. Watch, I will show you what I mean. So if you read Noah's Ark, okay, it said God told Noah to make a small window for the top of the ark, okay, and you're allowed to use a regular window, all right, but the Hebrew word for the first time I mentioned is just a regular word for a window, because you're supposed to use both philosophies of this just being a regular window, okay. But the second time it mentions this window, it uses this Hebrew word right here, this T-Z-O-H-R. It means a stone, or glowing stone, or a gem, okay? And please remember, in the ancient world, so you could say Noah made a glowing window, okay? I'm doing that on purpose, okay? Noah made a glowing window, a pillar of light window, okay? I'm saying that on purpose, alright? And all this really happened, and people started combining that and with the Garden of Eden again, and started making some really crazy stuff. Alright, I'm going to show you the combination of both in God's camp, okay? So this is a depiction of the Garden of Eden, and with that stone in the middle, okay? That stone in the middle, alright? Now look at this. God's camp just makes a big cross, okay? It can look like this. God's camp can look like this, or it can look like this. It depends on how you read the dimensions, okay? And that glowing in the middle was that the Ark of Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was a glowing pillar, okay? So that glowing stone was right in the middle of it, just as described throughout history and in the Garden of Eden, okay? Now really look at this. Look at this cross with the temples in the middle and the glowing pillar going up, okay? All right, and please remember, in the ancient worlds, eyes meant stones and jewels and stars, okay? Now look at this. I'm going to show you some old pictures of old kingdoms and the new kingdoms today, all right? So these are pictures of ancient maps. Notice how they just make big crosses. Okay, this is a Babylonian map. They made a big axis mundi, which is just a big cross. Same thing with Jerusalem, and no joke, same thing with Egypt, okay? The pyramids just make a big cross, all right? They're just recreating the Garden of Eden again and again and again. People, the oral traditions of the Garden of Eden went everywhere, okay? And they started mimicking the Garden of Eden and Noah's Ark, okay? Another reason is, this is so hilarious, because these guys were building their kingdoms according to Axis Mundi, which is the alignment of the stars and the sun and the moon. Since God is controlling that, not stinking Allah or the Mother Nature or, you know, Shiva or whoever, Buddha, since those gods aren't actually controlling the stars and God is, you are actually just making big crosses. Of course, if you don't come to the cross, this just becomes Antichrist stuff. Because God was the one organizing the stars. You think they're making a big... I know people think the Egyptians were so smart for aligning their temples with the stars, and the Babylonians, and the Dolmens, and all of it. God was literally just making big crosses. Now, are these kingdoms for God? No. If you don't actually come to the cross with this information, you are going to be... It's just Antichrist stuff. It's just the devil. Okay? Don't you think it's weird that everybody into making big crosses everywhere? Because these guys thought they were thought they were talking to a good God, okay? And aligning their crosses to some evil stuff, to the serpent, okay? The North Star back then was a serpent, okay? But really, God was just organizing everything into people making God's camp. And the message here is, you better come to the cross, or this just becomes Antichrist stuff, okay? And you have to realize when the Israelites were crossing the Red Sea and they crossed the River Jordan, it literally means cross in the Bible, because God uses play on words, alright? Literally, he meant crossing, because the Jews' camp was in the shape of a cross. Okay, now look at this picture. Look at this picture of God's camp, okay, with the pillar of light and smoke coming up from the middle of his chest, okay? Also, it's very important that God uses play on words, alright? So, ark means a box, like the ark, Noah's Ark, and then the Ark of the Covenant means a box, but ark also means chest, as in a human chest, and that is exactly where these pillars are coming from. They're coming through the chest of Christ. Get it? Hey, this is the exact same thing. It's just from a different angle. It's from the top. There's the cross with the chest pillar of smoke or light from the chest of the cross. Okay, this is the Washington D.C. Okay, it's just shaped like a big cross. Okay, again, are these kingdoms for God? Well, that's up to you. Okay, don't you think it's weird that you're just making big crosses everywhere? Okay, that's why it says in the book of Psalms, the heavens declare the glory of God. Okay, and people will use that to study the stars. But even better, the stars on earth just make big crosses. All right, they make many. The point is, God has many different access points on earth for you to come to Christ. Okay. And I know what people are going to say, you can just make a cross out of anything. Excuse me, half the time this man on a cross has a crown on his head. Just like on this, the Louvre Museum, okay? And it has that glass window right at its navel and chest, alright? No, it's the Garden of Eden over and over and over again. You can look at this in two ways. You can say God did this to try to save you, or you can say Satan is doing this to mock Christ. But there is something weird going on here. Alright? Alright? The Bible's real. Alright? The Eiffel Tower is exactly the same thing. Look. Okay, listen to me. I tried to explain this in my first angelology video, okay? Sometimes the rivers will complete the cross, just like I said in the Garden of Eden. The rivers complete the cross with the rest of the land. Okay, look at this. This is just a big cross with a crown on top, just like the Lou, and the Eiffel Tower is the navel of the god. Okay? Again, if you don't come to God with this, this is just Antichrist stuff. Okay, because obviously, I don't know if these people did it on purpose or what's going on, but they are aligning things with the stars, and you're just going to keep getting a man on a cross. And another thing I need to bring up, you got to look at these things multi-dimensionally and from different angles. See this middle part right here would be the top of the pyramid, and these side things going down. This is the temple. This is the Israelite temple, okay? So that thing in the middle was the top of Noah's Ark. That window, that little window on top of the top of the temple. Okay, and these sides would go down, and all you're doing is making a big pyramid, a big mountain. That's what pyramids are. They're just mountains. Again, God was just recreating the Garden of Eden. And that's what everybody was doing, but God had to redo it again and again and again through the Jews, and then through Christ, okay, and then through the Christians, okay, because people keep adding in their own stuff and making it for the devil. All this stuff just proves that the Bible is real. Doesn't disprove it. It proves that people add in their own stuff and it becomes Satan. And that the oral traditions of Noah doing this on his ark is the reason why every single temple, pagan or not, has a window on top of the church. Okay, because this incident, Noah Ark incident, really happened. That's why everyone has a little window on top, or multiple windows sometimes, on top of their churches. Okay, and this windows mean eyes, right? You have to connect dots in the Bible. The Bible's written in riddles sometimes, and you gotta figure just for more revelation. And you have to remember that because of that glowing stones means eyes, okay? Because in the ancient world, eyes meant jewels, stars, and stones, okay? So God uses this Ophanim thing to explain a lot of things. Yes, it's called an angel. There's lots of reasons why this thing is referred to as an angel, okay? But this thing is talking about Axis Mundi. I will actually even show it to you literally on one of these pictures, okay? Axis Mundi, but when it rotates, it means God is trying to say the center of the earth moves, technically. That's why Noah's Ark's version was on a boat that was moving, okay? And then that's why God had the people in the tents moving, because what do you mean by center of the earth? There's different kinds of ways to look at that. The center of the earth could be on top of the world, in the middle of the world, or at the bottom of the world. What version are you talking about? It depends on which angle you're looking at. That's why God has to put the cross all over in different angles, okay? Because people's versions of Axis Mundi is different. Sometimes they do it with the sun. Sometimes they do it with the North Star, which changes over a period of time, okay? Sometimes they do it at the bottom of the earth. So what do you mean by Axis Mundi? All right. So it's talking about this Ophanim thing. Okay, so Ophanim, I think it means that's what this thing means. It means an open window. Okay, it means an open window, an open doorway or gateway. All right. Okay, so I already talked about this in previous videos. In my very first angelology video, I talked about this. Okay. This Ophanim thing is the Axis Mundi for the Vatican, and you can literally see the eyeballs circling the pillar. Look at these eyeballs circling the pillar. Okay, so is the Ophanim talking about Axis Mundi? Of course. So a lot of these kingdoms, when you align them, they will either align with 3 stars, okay, that's what these 3 crosses and these 3 pyramids are talking about similar things, okay. But also, a long time ago, the North Star was an Axis Mundi point, okay, and people were aligning their kingdoms to the Axis Mundi point. So sometimes you would get crosses, a bunch of crosses, but another thing you would get is a lot of snakes and dragons, because back then the Theban North Star was in the shape of a big snake or dragon, alright? That is why these kingdoms will be shaped like snakes. This is the Mayan temples, okay? So the snake, and people will argue if this is a supernaturally built or if people built them. It doesn't matter to me if you think the Nephilim built this thing or if people did it, because it's still the same evil, okay? People doing it or demons doing it, it's the same thing to me, okay? I don't care if you these things were probably supernaturally built because they were too perfectly aligned. But frankly, you can maybe do it if you were just aligning it with the stars, because the stars are already naturally perfectly aligned. Anyway, I know there's an argument there, okay? Perhaps the Nephilim built these temples before pre-flood stuff. Very much so. So basically, when the sun started, falling upon this temple, what would happen is the snake would slowly start going down to the ground. Alright? That's from what my understanding. The stairs were the serpent, okay? That's very important because a lot of these kingdoms, the stairs are the serpents, or they're the currents, okay? Alright? So on this Mayan temple, it was perfectly aligned to make it seem like the snake was going down. The snake head is at the bottom of it. See that snake head? The snake head is going down. And also, same thing with the Great Serpent Mound in the United States. Of course, people say the Native Americans built it, but the Native Americans said they didn't build it. It was completely impossible for them to build it, just like the pyramids and all that stuff. You can decide. I'm guessing that they didn't, because it was way too hard for them to do that back then. But again, the Serpent Mount is perfectly aligned to Draco, the dragon, okay? The North Pole serpent, alright? Just like the Vatican, okay? Alright, it's the Theban isn't the North Star anymore, it changed, alright? Okay, so the Vatican is shaped like a big snake, okay? And probably Baal's temple was shaped like a big snake too, because the temple Basilica of the Vatican and the Basilica of Baal, what does Basilica mean? Basilica means crowned serpent. But, whatever, keep going to this church thinking that you're worshiping Christ. And look at this. This is just an Ophanim open doorway with a snake coming out of it. A crowned snake. Okay? Because they are worshiping Thuban. They're worshiping the snake North Star, not the cross. So yeah, Axis Mundi points are when things are built in a circle like this. And these points, these pillars are supposed to point in every direction. Okay, the Stonehenge is an Axis Mundi point, but it's really old and it got torn. You can tell it's still there, but it's fallen apart. And this is the wheel. This is called the Wheel of Giants. Usually there's people and things it's usually on a burial mound, like that snake one I just showed you. It's a burial mound. There's supposed to be things buried under there, okay? Half the time there are giants buried under there. They'll find them, and if they'll tell everyone and no one cares, okay? These are burial mounds, but they're an Axis Mundi point. They're an access to a god. Obviously, this is not a good one, okay? So, just like how God's version has, in the book of Revelation, or everywhere in the whole Bible, God has 7, he has to use certain numbers for certain reason. He has 7 or 12 pillars, okay? The reason why he has 7 sometimes is because Noah's Ark had 8 pillars, okay? That's why most of these Axis Mundi points will have 8 pillars, alright? And then one of them left, which was Ham, okay? And now there were 7 off Noah's Ark. There were 7 pillars, but there's originally supposed to be 8, alright? That's why lots of times God has to change the numbers for different reasons. But the 12 pillars are people, okay? They're people But just like on this one, these are giants buried in there, okay? It's the same concept, it's just a twisted version of God, okay? People bring people to God, and people bring people to Satan, okay? This is the Wheel of the Giants. There are supposed to be giants buried under there, okay? And again, the Vatican is built on an ancient burial mound from before biblical times. It's crazy. They admit it now. No one cares. It's built on a burial mound, just like all these demonic other burial mounds, Axis Mundi points, are built on burial mounds. And the Statue of Liberty has one in the middle of this Axis Mundi point. This is Ishtar worship. The Statue of Liberty is based off of Ishtar, okay? And there's the Axis Mundi point. In the middle of this thing is a flagpole. A coincidence? Of course not. Everybody has been doing the exact same thing for thousands of years. So yeah, so Axis Mundi is the navel of the earth, which is that window from Noah's Ark, okay? It's represented by that a star, okay, or a mountain, okay? That's why God has to call Christ all of these things. He has to represent him as a tree, okay, and a mountain, okay, which is just a big temple. Jesus Christ is the temple, right? And not just that, it's the people. I'm really gonna get into this. So, yes, this stuff is all about Christ, but when constantly through the Bible, when it says you are the trees and you're the pillars, be a pillar, make yourself a pillar. You are the access point. You are the gateway. You're supposed to be opening this for other people to come to Christ, okay? You're the access, okay? You're the connection for other people too, okay? You're leading people. You're supposed to point people to Christ, all right? That's why God all constantly calls you the pillar. But guess who everyone else is? If you haven't accepted Christ, other people are just the pillars, okay? See, just like in this picture, the people are the pillars. Literally, you can see that the people are the pillars, okay? And Satan has his own Axis Mundis all over, okay? They are mocking God, all right? Also, I wanted to point out, like, these pillars with the smoke coming out of it. You can look at this at two ways. First of all, you can say Christ is trying to get your attention. Isn't it weird that all these kingdoms are just shaped like big crosses? Okay, but if you don't accept Christ, this kingdom becomes the soldier who put his sword through the heart of Christ. Do you remember when that happened? Okay, you become the enemy if you don't come to Christ with this information. Usually a pillar or a mountain or a temple, all right, or the navel. It's an access point to God from other places. You don't obviously have to go to a literal place to get saved, because I just showed you that it's everywhere. The Axis Mundi is everywhere, all right? The access point is anywhere and everywhere. And you're supposed to be the pillar directing people to the middle, the heart of God, okay, the chest. Anyway, just like in those real pictures, the people, the tribes of Israel, represented the kingdom and the mountain, okay? Anyway, Axis Mundi is also a box, okay? I just showed you that little box is a chest, right? All right, that's why Noah's Ark is called Noah's Ark, because ark means a box, okay? That is why in Islam, their Axis Mundi, and not to mention this little box, this black box is represented all over the earth, but their Axis Mundi, their god is Mecca, is that black box. And yes, you can make the cross into a box if you need it to be a box. Sometimes it's a pillar, sometimes it's a mountain, sometimes it's a box or an ark, because ark just means box or chest, okay? And it's so funny because God does all of them. He did all of them to try to save you, okay? Sometimes it's a pyramid, which is just a mountain. That's why Noah's Ark, look at this, these boxes have gopher on them. These arks are made of gopher. Do you see that these have little squares on them? Those are arks made of gopher, but not God's version, okay? I talked about that in this Splinter video, what gopher means, alright? If you want to get more involved in that. because gopher means that lattice pattern, that boxed lattice pattern. That's what gopher means. These arcs are also made of gopher. Do you see how, and they have one of these boxes in the United Nations, and everyone worships it, okay? Because they say they're about every religion, everyone can do what they want, but they just put one black box in the middle of the access point, and everyone is allowed to worship their own god at that one box. It's all one world religion stuff. The United Nations has a temple, has a chapel in it, and since they're trying to be politically correct, and they're not going to put just one god in the middle, they just put a black box there, and you're supposed to worship any god you want at that box. Super creepy. And that's what the Kabba and what the Kabba stone means. It means center of the earth. Alright? It's all about worshiping the center of the earth and the access point to God. A very, very twisted version of it. And sometimes it's a rope or a ladder. That is why in the Bible it does all of them. Jacob's ladder is at the access point to the sun. When Rahab saved the Israelites with that cord or rope, that is access mundi to the window, okay? If you remember that story in the Bible, God does all of them. And most important of all, God uses this. You're supposed to direct all the stuff to Christ. He uses every kind of access mundi in the Bible to bring you to Christ, okay? He does the rope, he does the mountain, he does the tree. He does the navel window. I don't know what else you want him to do. He does it every way, and in every way, so to save you. Alright? I wanted to bring up things that are access mundi that you're not thinking of. Like Jack and the Beanstalk is access mundi. When he climbs up that plant to get to the heavens, I guess you could say, where those giants were. That's access mundi, okay? But remember, the devil has his own version of all of it. Alright? I also wanted to bring up that these angels are talking about access mundi as well. Even the etymology of access mundi means winged. If you go look up what access mundi means and all the words it can translate to, it translates into a church or an access point or navel or middle of the earth, but it also can translate into having wings, winged, okay, wing, armpit, wing of an army. Okay, so access mundi means winged as well. The angels, why they have 4 to 6 wings, these angels, right, the seraphims and the cherubims, they have 4 to 6 wings because their wings are supposed to be pointing in all the directions, kind of like a spinning top, okay? God even uses the angels as access mundi, the Ophanim I just showed you. But the reason why these angels have 4 to 6 wings is because they're pointing their wings throughout the whole earth, okay? They're doing the access mundi, okay? God uses this information for many types of revelation, alright? But remember, Satan has his own version of all this. He's got his own angels, his own seraphims and cherubims. Okay. So the book of Revelation is talking about this winged access mundi throned army, okay? And round about the throne were 4 and 20 seats. There were 24 thrones on this access mundi, okay? And people will argue if these are angels or people, and it's a mixture of both, okay? Because God even calls you these angels anyway. And upon the seats I saw 4 and 20 elders sitting, clothed in white, okay? And then I'm going to go down, and before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne were 4 beasts. Okay, so in the middle of the throne there was a crystal, just like this. Before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face of a man. Fourth beast was like a flying eagle. The 4 beasts each of them had 6 wings about them. That means there was 24 thrones, and then when you add up the wings, there were 24 wings. So this is a big winged throned army. And this is so important, and I know every single person is probably going to disagree with me, but this is not just talking about the future. First of all, this scene is played out through the whole Bible, because this is also describing what was already in the Garden of Eden. Okay, that is why every single person started recreating it, just like the mountains. Okay, this scene was in the Garden of Eden. Nothing has changed. The only thing that what happened is people replaced Satan and his army and completed the kingdom of God. All right, and another thing is, you are supposed to be doing this right now. You are supposed to be fighting for God, spiritual warfare right now. Do not think don't sit comfortably and watch TV all day and maybe go to church on Sunday and thinking that you're fighting for God because you need to bring people to Christ now. Okay, I know people think, oh, this is about the future. No, it's right now. It's right now. Satan's been doing it right now. He has his own winged army of men circling around their center of the earth. So if Satan's been doing it, you need to be doing it right now. Okay, like, I'm so sure that this is just about the future. You need to be fighting right now. This has been happening since the beginning of time. You should be fighting since the beginning of time. I'm going to go to a different part of Book of Revelation. It talks about God's throne again. And what does it say? For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne. That means God is in the middle. Okay, he is the middle navel, all right? Shall feed them. There we go. That is that navel talk. It's talking about, like in real life childbirth, the navel feeds the people, all right? The middle feeds the people, like an umbilical cord, okay? And shall lead them unto living waters, fountains of waters. It's talking about those 4 fountains in the book of Genesis that feed the people. God feeds the people, okay? Okay, I'm going to bring up circular ambulation now. I'm going to briefly go over it. Circular ambulation is when you circle the center. You add motion into this. I'm going to bring up the dimensions. What are the dimensions? The dimensions are length, width, and depth, and then the 4th dimension of time. That means you gotta add the clock into this thing. It's length, width, depth, and the 4th dimension is time. You gotta start spinning this thing. That's why God's Ophanim starts spinning, okay? You gotta add the clock into it. Okay, that is why people circle the throne. They dance around the throne. That's why in the Bible they sing and dance around the throne. That's circular ambulation. That is some very in-depth stuff, okay? It is real. You can call it magnetic fields, or you can call it chemistry, okay? But you have to be in perfect chemistry and the perfect alignment with God to get into heaven, okay? Doing yoga is aligning your chakras. I know yoga's evil. Yep. Okay. That's what you're doing. You're aligning to the center of the earth. You're aligning to the God with your body. Can you do that for God, the God's version? Yeah, it's called fasting and praying and reading the Bible and not doing yoga. Okay. All right. So anyway, this is talking about when people circle the middle. That is circular ambulation. That is why the Tower of Babel is shaped like a corkscrew or like a big screw, okay? Because circular ambulation is a ritual. It's an ancient ritual, but we still do it now. Okay, when you circle the middle, it creates energy fields. That is why that's why all these current and ancient people were dancing around fires where they were dancing around the middle. That's why people to this day, this is obviously an evil version, they dance around in a circle, okay? And they, it's usually around a fire, and they dress like animals and dance around a pole or a fire. This is magic, and you're not literally supposed to be doing this. The Vikings did it too. They dressed like animals. I know shape-shifting is it's scary. You have to dance around a fire and dress like an animal, and it's black magic. The Vikings were doing the exact same thing. I'm not just picking on the Native Americans. White people were doing the exact same rituals. Witches dancing around a fire or dancing around ancient stones, the dolmens, that all came from white people too, okay? Everybody is guilty of this. There are plenty of Native Americans and East Indian people in heaven because they worship Christ and they don't do this stuff. God uses the circular ambulation to explain the cycle of life, and then people know this. When you type in Nexus Mundi, you're going to get the cycle of life, the the death and resurrection of life, okay, which is about Christ, and is God is the one controlling this, not Mother Nature or some other god, okay? It's not some other god doing this, but you saying it's just Mother Nature or filling any god is demonic. It's Antichrist stuff, because you're saying something else is doing that. Yes, God uses magnetic fields to rotate the earth. Yes, the earth is spinning. Yes, there's a cycle of life, a round cycle of life, that is God doing it. But you trying to manipulate it for your own needs, like with CERN or with other magical powers, is demonic. You're not supposed to mess around with that stuff. You're not the one in control. That's technically magic, okay? It's called magic. No, you're not supposed to literally do it. You're not supposed to literally build something and dance around it. Okay, that's idolatry. If you are literally building some Stonehenge thing and literally doing it, because you're saying that those stones are God. Reading the Bible, telling people about the Bible, praising God is the only way you're allowed to do it. God circumambulated Joshua in the book of Joshua. When they circumambulated what you would do is you would take the god and circle the city to bless the city. Okay, everyone was doing it. The Babylonians were doing it. They would get a statue of their god, okay, and they would circle the city, or they would circle the center. That is why in Mecca they circumambulate the middle. This was all in the Garden of Eden. That's everybody started doing it. In the book of Joshua, God showed that God does it, but he shows up how a place is going to be accursed. When he circles the city, Jericho. When God circled Jericho, the city was destroyed, and he blew 7 horns. Just like in the book of Revelation, there are 7 horns being blown as God's people circle the earth. And that is actually expunging evil. Okay, that is, you can say it's tribulation stuff, but there's a connection there. You have to read the whole Bible. When God expunges people and cleanses the earth of sin, he circles 7 times. And these blowing of horns can get very, very complicated. But when you preach the gospel and you sing the gospel, you expunge evil, alright? And yes, these angels are supposed to be you. Jesus did it with his death and resurrection. He said he's going to tear down the temple in 3 days and build a new temple. I believe we're already in the new kingdom, okay? We are in the temple, okay? He circumambulated in 3 days with his death and resurrection. He went around Jerusalem, the original Temple Mount, okay? He went around it one time, okay? That's circumambulation. That's magic. You can call it magic. He was expunging the evil in the area. I think the Temple Mount is currently cursed. Okay, it has Mecca. It has an Islamic temple on the Temple Mount. Is it cursed? It's cursed. All right. You have to say yes. You have to try to save these people, but God was trying to say this Temple Mount isn't God's holy place anymore. He knew that right when he died and resurrected. The people became the pillars and the temple, aka the new temple, in 3 days. Because right when he died and resurrected, people on that very day became Christians. The Catholic Church does it with Mary. This is, you literally doing this. God does it in the Bible, okay? But you doing it with Mary is saying Mary is God. And circling the church, you're saying Mary is God, and they do it with they call it the progression of saints. They circle the building with Mary or statues of saints, because you are worshiping them as gods, and you're circling your temple. Okay, so this is what they used to do. They used to get the king or the idol and circle the city about once every couple years or once a year. All right, and it's so funny because this is where parades come from. You carrying idols on your shoulder, whether they be cartoon characters or singers or whatever your idols are, and marching around the city is where parades come from. And it's so funny because that's where the inaugurational parade for the president comes from. This is your king, and you're circling the city with your king in a parade. That is an ancient ritual that the Assyrians were doing, that we're still doing now. Okay, Jesus did it because he's supposed to be your king. He circled the city, all right? The Ark of the Covenant circled Jerusalem before it became Jerusalem, okay? Because the Ark represented God temporarily. Because these people did not understand that they just could not understand that God couldn't be in a place or in just in an object. For a while, God had the Ark of the Covenant to represent him so they could understand what was going on. But then immediately he got rid of the Ark of the Covenant, okay? He met them in the middle and pulled them out of that deception, okay? Because they just could not understand that God couldn't be. Everyone had no idea. They didn't understand that God wasn't in an object or just in one place. So God had them do the Jerusalem and the Ark of the Covenant, and then he pulled them out of it with Christ. This is so crazy. So this is bananas right here. So if you type in Access Mundi, there's always an evil being at the bottom of the tree. It's usually a man with snake hair, or it's a dragon, or it's snakes and dragons. Okay, a man with snake hair, and a dragon, or a big serpent. They're tangled in the roots of the tree, okay? Now look at the Vatican. The Vatican is just, I already talked about this in my other videos, but the Vatican's God they're worshiping, that's supposed to represent Jesus, but it's really the devil, obviously, because this is a man with a snake hair. His hair looks like snakes, and he's tangled in the roots of the tree. You guys are worshiping the devil. Please stop and get out of it before you run out of time. Get out of that church. It is you out of your mind if you think that's God did it on purpose, so you could be saved. You're out of your mind if you think that's a coincidence. All right, that's Access Mundi. It's a concept that keeps going and going and going, but it basically means center of the earth and a connection to a God. But do you know what the Bible calls the center of the earth as well? Hell is called the center of the earth. It is the sacred stone that you are dancing around, the navel of the earth that is feeding you garbage, and the sacred fire you are dancing around, and the sacred dome of the earth you are worshiping and connecting yourself to and aligning yourself with. If you are not accepting Christ, you are definitely connecting yourself with something. The center of this version of the center of the earth, of course. This is why God put 2 pillars in the garden, one evil and one good. All these other holy books just say there was one. There was only one good tree. Okay, no, God put 2 because there are 2 centers of the earth. There's heaven and there's hell. Guess which one you are aligning your chakras to, and which one you are connecting yourself to if you don't accept Christ. These are the sacred pillars that you are aligning yourself with. Okay, and these dolmens, these circular ambulation landmarks, there are literally hundreds of them, if not thousands. These are exactly what the Tower of Babel looked like from above. Okay, they're vortexes of energy. No, it's not okay. There is a good version. You know it has nothing to do with you building some weird thing and dancing around naked around it. Okay, you go to church, you read the Bible, and you come to Christ. That is the power God gives you. That's it, guys. It's a long video, but I had to try to squeeze it all in there as much as I could. All right, thank you.